What is going on, everybody? In this video, I'm going to be giving you some more industry insight knowledge that maybe none of you have ever heard before in your life. In fact, I had a few comments from the interview that I did with my manager, David, that literally they had never heard this information in their entire lives and were completely mind blown that this is even happening in the music industry. Hey, real quick, before I jump into this video, if you're interested in private guitar instruction with yours truly online, my email is in the link in the description below. Just shoot me an email, state your case, and I will get back to you. The lesson slots do tend to fill up pretty quickly. If that happens, I also do have a waiting list, so I look forward to hearing from you. Also, don't forget to sign up for my free monthly newsletter, free written guitar lesson every month, as well as access to all of my tabs. Link in the description and pinned comment as well. I figured that today I would bring this to everyone's, attention, and maybe it's intriguing for some of you to learn about, especially if you're trying to break into the music industry, if you have a band in some way, shape or form that's trying to get on tours, open for headliner acts, etc. This is probably a lot of stuff that you have, maybe didn't even know about, didn't even know exists. So, and that is that a lot of the opener artists, especially in the rock genre and the metal genre, that you see opening for your favorite band, actually paid for that tour slot. Okay, this is a very common thing that happens in the rock and metal music industry. Okay, so basically how it works in a nutshell is you will get, in touch with a booking agency. There's some big ones out there, like TKO is a pretty reputable, sizable booking agency. There's a couple others out there as well. TKO is probably the biggest one in the kind of B-lister space, I guess I would say. They don't do like huge artists, like they're not doing like Taylor Swift, but they still do like big artists. So those are usually the booking agents that you would get in touch with, of that kind of caliber to get on to these kinds of tours. And by the way, I'm not saying that TKO does this specifically. I'm just using them as an example of kind of like the size booking agent that you would be looking for to help you with this kind of transaction. So basically, you'll get locked in with either the agency or an individual of the essence connected to one of these major agencies, and they will prompt you with offers, okay? And those offers could be any band, As David, my old manager, mentioned in the interview, which I'll show later in this video, they were offered with his band at the time, before he even managed my band, offers with 30 Seconds to Mars, Drowning Pool, Sevendust. Trying to think, there was another one in there that was I'll remember when the interview plays, but 30 Seconds to Mars, it was Volbeat was the other one. And I believe the Bion, well, let me first explain what that is, actually. Basically what happens at this point is they offer you the slot, okay? And then they will actually relay to you the terms of getting on to this tour slot. And now this slot could last really any duration of time. It could be a month. It could be maybe even sometimes 3 months if it's a long tour. It could be a couple weeks. It could be 1 week. It could even be one show. A lot of you that are familiar with pay to play, this is essentially pay to play on steroids, okay? This is like payola times 100,000, basically, with this kind of stuff that goes on. But basically, like in his specific case, he was offered a tour opening for Volbeat and 30 Seconds to Mars, or flipped the headliner slots on that, actually. And they prompted him, would say, hey, if you want this slot, it is a month long, and it's going to cost you $100,000 cash to just secure your band as the opener band on this arena tour for these other two bands, right? No guarantee of payment to you, because you're paying obviously to get on it, so you're not getting paid. and no guarantee of for you personally as a band to make any merch sales, to sell your CDs, which was what was happening at that time. Now that wouldn't even really be a big thing. Um, you know, to just gain popularity and momentum. They don't really care about these kinds of things, right? The bands don't care about you. You're just their payment. You're kind of an accessory payment basically to them for allowing you to open for their band, right? And now this is a pretty extreme circumstance. Obviously, David was very locked in to that touring scene back then, which would have been about over 10 years ago now.
Yeah. Well, and you were touring with like some pretty big, I mean, people would know the bands for sure on this. I mean, you were touring with like Mushroom Head and Head PE at one point. Like,
Yeah,
I know you
and
weren't in those bands, but you were like opening for them every night.
right. Yeah. And then Trapped, we were out with them.
Yeah. Infamous.
You're right. The one song that everybody knows, Headstrong. But yeah, so that was fun being out on the road, being able to sort of live my dream. But at the same time, there were days where you really question what the heck you're doing, because you might have a show where you had 500 people and it was a really good vibe, a really good venue. And then you go to the next location and you have 50. And that was tough to deal with sometimes, because the 50 people that were there weren't even there to see you. They're there to see the headliner. So they weren't really watching us, or they were out drinking, waiting for us to be finished, so they could come in and see the headliner. Um, that happened a lot when we were out with Wayne Static. And it
Oh
just it
yeah.
just seemed like one day would be great. The next day, nothing. We got a tour offer to go out with 30 Seconds to Mars. And then
Damn.
we had a tour offer for Volbeat for like a month. And those would have been probably the tours that would have maybe got us to where we wanted to go. But the buy-on for those was 100 grand, and one was 120 grand just for a month. You touched on that in one of your other videos, where um, part of the problem with rock metal are the bands that are staying at the top, the Metallicas of the world, that aren't bringing up the next generation. The problem is with those B-list bands, they're just out to get your money. They want bands that can afford to go out on tour with them and pay you 50,000 or 75,000 to go out with them for a couple months. And so they're not really there to support you and bring you up. They're just there to take your money, which is unfortunate. So it's those big dogs that aren't taking the time to have a show where they have locals open up for them. It's always somebody that's out on tour with them, um, that's connected to a record label. And so that's really unfortunate, because if you're playing a local show for a lot of bands, if you're doing the pay to play and you're supposed to sell 50 tickets and you only sell 50% of those tickets, so you sold 25, a percentage of those people aren't going to show up. They just bought the tickets to be nice to you. And then the rest of them are typically friends and family. So now you have four bands that might bring in 25 people. 25 people are there to see you that are friends and family. Everybody else is friends and family with the other bands. Nobody's there to actually hear your band and support your band and like tell other people about your band. So the local scene, it's really hard to make a name for yourself, because everybody's looking out for their best interest and trying to make a name for themselves, so they could care less, trying to get people to your show. And that's where those big guys got to come in and find the talent, and then give them a stage to showcase what they can do. And not everybody's going to have it, but to give them that ability to at least get out there in front of people is a huge step. There's just a huge gap.
The thing that sucks about this is that if you get into that space of touring, you're kind of much easier to get stuck in that space. Meaning, and this is my opinion, this isn't really like a factual thing right now on this point that I'm making, but this is my opinion of my perspective on it. If you constantly are doing pay-to-play tours on this caliber, I believe eventually you'll just be seen as a cash cow for other bands, meaning that no one's going to take you seriously.
and it's actually going to lead you to absolutely nowhere. So you're essentially just paying to play Rockstar 24/7, you know, when you're doing this kind of stuff. And I've seen it happen to, you know, not just his old band, but plenty of friends' bands over the years. I mean, my band did that at one point, right? Not to that degree, definitely not 100K for a tour, but these are things that are very easy to kind of get caught up in. And then basically you get stuck doing it, and then bands realize they can make money off you. They don't take you seriously, and therefore you will never actually get the record deal opportunity you're looking for. You know, you might actually build a following maybe from doing this kind of stuff, but let's just be honest. A real following nowadays is built on the internet, and it was even kind of like that back then. And my band was doing this around 2015, so the internet was very prevalent still at this time, and it was not uncommon at all to, you know, build your fan base online. There's plenty of people that were doing it. So touring already was kind of becoming like dinosaur age of building a following. You know, there was a time, obviously, before the internet, that was the only way to build a following, is just constantly get exposure to real life people that can actually hear your music live and know what it is and buy your CDs and, you know, stuff like that. But nowadays, you don't really have a need for that. So if you're going to buy onto a tour, you're essentially just playing Rockstar to say that you went on a tour with so-and-so, even though it does nothing for your career, in a sense, right? Personal story for me is my band did get prompted with, you know, this opportunity, and it cost us, I believe, I could be wrong, but in the interview that I'll play after this, we'll know for sure, about, I want to say, $10,000 to buy on to only like a week and a half of tour, and that was with Il Nino as the headliner and Motograter, okay? So now the reason that we did this was because at the time we were a new band, obviously super young. We were all underage. I was like 15. Our bass player was 16, and the drummer was 14. Okay, who's my brother, okay? He was the drummer. And David, you know, just wanted us to have tour experience, which is why we bought onto that tour.
I just want to know what your perspective was at the time. So, like, basically, you getting us on our first tour, was that even worth it? Like, how much did we pay for that? What was everything involved with that? And what was the tour?
That was with Motograter. So that is the band that what's his face
what
from
about
Five Finger Death Punch.
Wait, what about Il Nino though? They were.
Oh, I
They
forgot
the
they were on that
headliner.
too. No, dude.
That's like-
Motograter was supposed to be the headliner, but Il Nino
What?
was bigger still. Yeah, seriously.
Oh, wait, okay. Oh, I
Yeah.
forgot about this. What wasn't this like? Wasn't it actually supposed to be a couple different bands headlining? It was supposed to be like 36 Crazy Fists, Kitty, and Il Nino, or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And then a
And then
bunch of
what?
them dropped off, and then Motograter suddenly became like the headliner. And I'm like, what the heck? Like they were never relevant other than the Five Finger Death Punch singer came from that band and started Five Finger Death Punch. So from an aspect of experience, I think it was good. Maybe you were still a little too young to be on the road.
What was the MO in terms of like, okay, I'm going to have them buy onto this tour. This is good for their band. What was the thought, and how much did that cost?
I think that tour was like 15 grand to buy on. If I remember correct, I'm not 100% sure on that, but at that point it was just exposure and trying to get you guys exposure anywhere I could. And I think that tour is mostly in Texas, wasn't it? I think all in Texas. Just
I think it was
about.
all in Texas except for the last show.
Okay, yeah. So it's getting you out of your state and getting you exposure to other places. And it's, for me, it wasn't even all about what's going to come from this, but more having that experience and understanding what goes into it, because a lot of people have this glorified view of what it's going to be like to be out on tour. And it was a short stint. It was to give you a little taste of what reality is going to be. And also to see some of those knuckleheads that were still out there thinking they were going to make it and touring it with these low level bands, um, and hopefully not having a bad influence on you.
There's an age demographic there where it's like, okay, you're still doing this. What is the thought behind that? And is it reality, or is it something where it's like, is there a certain age you get to in this thing where it's like you should quit and just call it a day?
For me, once I got into my 30s, um, the reality of it's going to take another probably 5 years to really continue to build what we had in Corvus, and we weren't really making that much traction to begin with. And it wasn't fun being out on tour. I had to leave my job, and thankfully, I was paid to manage the band and run all their social media and do the booking. So I was getting paid from that aspect. But when you have a marriage, when you have relationships, that really is tough to continue doing that unless you are receiving money from a relative on a monthly basis and you can just sort of blow money. um
Would you say that
it's not
they were
feasible.
also like an industry plant band as well?
Yeah, I guess at a level.
Like, so everybody that's buying onto these tours, where do they get the money? Like, because we know where we got the money, but where did they, like, them, that band, or I don't
Yeah,
know. I'm not gonna say the other one again.
right. I do think it is some people are using their inheritance. Some people are receiving money from rich family members. It's not because they're working hard to be
Yeah,
out there on the road. You're never going to make enough money on the road to pay for being on the road and buying onto the tours, because like when I was in Corvus, when we were playing at the Whiskey in LA, um, they took, I think it was like 35% of our sales, and
whoa.
we barely sold anything to begin with. So you're not making money from your album sales or merch sales. It's just not enough to sustain that. So there has to be a factor in there, and nobody's willing to give that up and really tell the details of how they're getting that money. But
Yeah.
there's somebody back there funding it for sure.
Touring is already expensive. You hear the stories of, I think Dave Mustaine has actually a pretty famous story recently that he's told about how much it cost him daily to be on tour, which he said is something like $40,000, which isn't really that unbelievable, to be honest. Now, keep in mind, they're making money on tour, right? And then you have this scenario where bands just charge you just to be able to go on the tour and have your name printed on the flyer. Okay? So, yeah, it's pretty crazy out there. And I didn't realize that this information was less common to know about, but it is a thing. And it happens to a lot of bands that you like, probably. I can just think of like 50 right off the top of my head that I've had friends either buy onto their tour or been prompted with buying onto the tours. So it's a very common thing. Definitely bands like 30 Seconds to Mars, Volbeat, for us, Il Nino, Now, truth be told, I really am unsure entirely of where this money goes in regards to the artists themselves. I don't know if that money actually goes in their pocket. I don't know if that goes to their booking agents or if it's just purely a booking agent fee that they get paid to do it and it doesn't even go to the artist. These are all unknowns to me in that sense. Like, I couldn't for sure give you an answer on that part of it, but the barrier to entry is high and not worth it, in my opinion. Touring in general, at this point in 2025, I feel is only necessary if you have a following and would like to see that following in the flesh. Not to build a following from scratch, but rather to enhance the artistry for your already existing audience, for people to come see you and make that connection in real life. If you are in a band and you have been prompted to buy onto a tour before, for one, leave it in the comments, but also, did you do it and was it worth it? I don't feel like it is worth it. And if you are, never done it before and thinking about doing something like this, maybe you already have, the knowledge of what I'm saying in this video, I would strongly recommend not doing it. So, with that being said, did you already know that this exists before? Is this new information to you? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. And if you want one-on-one guitar lessons from yours truly, send me an email, state your case, and I will get back to you. Also, don't forget to sign up for the free monthly newsletter. Link in the description. All those links are in the description and the pinned comment below. So with that being said, I will see you on the next video. Thank you so much for watching.